The USS Michael Monsoor is unlike anything else on this planet. It's a $4.4 billion floating fortress where 147 sailors work and live for 6 months at a time in the most advanced stealth destroyer ever constructed. Just 610 feet of cutting-edge technology for 147 people to operate a warship that can evade enemy radar while launching missiles at targets 1,000 miles away. And it's quite impressive how these sailors adapt to life aboard a vessel that looks like something from a science fiction movie. How they manage their daily routines in compartments designed for stealth over comfort, while maintaining one of the most sophisticated weapon systems ever deployed. The Zumwalt-class destroyer represents the pinnacle of naval engineering. With its distinctive angular hull designed to deflect radar, the USS Michael Monsoor has a radar cross-section 50 times smaller than conventional destroyers. To put it into perspective, this 15,995-ton warship appears on enemy radar as a small fishing boat. But beneath this technological marvel, 147 men and women must adapt to living conditions that balance cutting-edge warfare capabilities with the basic human needs of sleeping, eating, and staying sane in the middle of the ocean. Kitchen and the food, feeding the crew of America's most advanced destroyer. The food aboard the USS Michael Monsoor is famously excellent, and there's a good reason why the Navy learned decades ago that good food is absolutely critical for morale when sailors are deployed for months at a time with no shore leave. When you can't leave the ship, can't see your family, and work 12 to 16-hour days, a great meal becomes the highlight of your day. The galley operates 24 hours a day, serving 4 full meals instead of the traditional 3, because watch schedules mean sailors eat at all hours. The culinary specialists prepare breakfast from 0600 to 0730, lunch from 1100 to 1230, dinner from 1700 to 1830, and midnight rations from 2300 to 0100. To put it into perspective, the ship stores approximately 45,000 pounds of food at the beginning of a deployment. That includes 8,000 pounds of fresh fruits and vegetables, 12,000 pounds of frozen meats, 6,000 pounds of dairy products, and 19,000 pounds of dry goods and canned items. Fresh food typically lasts 30 to 45 days before the menu transitions to primarily frozen and canned ingredients. But since storage space is limited, food gets pretty creative with locations. You'll find cans stored under berthing racks, in passageway overheads, and in any void space that can be secured. The ship has 8 walk-in freezers and 4 walk-in refrigerators, each monitored constantly for temperature control. The culinary specialists undergo intensive training where they learn not just cooking but also nutrition, inventory management, and food safety. Moreover, special occasions like Thanksgiving get elaborate meals with turkey, stuffing, multiple side dishes, and homemade desserts that rival shoreside restaurants. The galley itself is compact but highly efficient, with 4 convection ovens, 6 burner ranges, 2 deep fryers, and a large griddle. Everything is stainless steel and secured to prevent movement in rough seas. During heavy weather, cooks work with safety straps and prepare simpler meals that won't cause injuries if the ship takes a hard roll. Toilets, showers, and laundry personal hygiene on a stealth warship. For 147 sailors, there are exactly 34 toilets and 18 shower stalls spread throughout the ship. That's 1 toilet for every 4.3 people and 1 shower for every 8.2 sailors. In fact, the math gets pretty creative when you consider that the crew operates on a 3-section watch rotation, meaning roughly a third are sleeping, a third are on watch, and a third have free time at any given moment. Showers are strictly limited to 5 minutes, and that includes getting wet, soaping up, and rinsing off. The ship produces fresh water through reverse osmosis desalination, processing seawater at a rate of 35,000 gallons per day. But since every system aboard consumes power, and power management is critical for stealth operations, water conservation is taken seriously. Sailors who take longer than 5 minutes get nicknamed and sometimes face good-natured harassment from shipmates waiting in line. However, there's a special privilege called a Hollywood shower, an unlimited time shower awarded for exceptional performance or sometimes given to sailors on their birthdays. It's worth their weight in gold aboard a destroyer where every luxury is measured in minutes and gallons. Plus, officers and senior enlisted have access to slightly larger shower facilities in their dedicated heads, though they're still expected to keep it under 10 minutes. Laundry facilities consist of 6 washing machines and 6 dryers for the entire crew. Sailors sign up for time slots, typically getting 2 loads per week. Each sailor is responsible for their own laundry, and the schedule runs 24 hours a day. The thing is that you learn very quickly to set alarms because leaving your laundry in the machine when your time slot expires means it gets removed and dumped wherever there's space, and not always folded nicely. Sleeping quarters. Living aboard America's stealth destroyer. The sleeping arrangements on the USS Michael Monsoor are surprisingly better than most naval vessels, but still far from comfortable. Unlike older destroyers where sailors sleep in cramped berthing areas with 60 to 100 racks stacked 3 high, the Zumwalt-class features smaller berthing compartments. Each berthing area houses between 8 and 12 sailors, with racks arranged in 2 high configurations rather than the traditional 3 high coffin racks. Each sailor gets approximately 30 square feet of personal space, which includes their sleeping rack and a small storage locker measuring just 2 feet by 2 feet by 3 feet. That's everything they own for 6 months compressed into 12 cubic feet. The racks themselves are 6 feet 2 inches long and just under 2 feet wide, with about 3 feet of clearance between bunks. The thing is that taller sailors have to sleep diagonally or with their feet hanging off the edge. But since the Zumwalt-class was designed with advanced automation, requiring only 147 crew members instead of the 300+ on conventional destroyers, there's no hot bunking. Every sailor gets their own rack, which is a luxury compared to older submarines and carriers where sailors on different shifts share beds. Moreover, junior enlisted sailors still share their berthing spaces, while senior enlisted and officers get increasingly private quarters. Chiefs get 2-person staterooms, and the commanding officer has a suite with a separate bedroom, office, and private bathroom. Free time and recreation. Life beyond duty stations. Free time aboard the USS Michael Monsoor is limited and carefully managed. With 147 sailors operating a ship that requires constant monitoring, most crew members work a rotation of 6 hours on watch, 6 hours of maintenance and training, 6 hours of personal time, and 6 hours of sleep. That personal time includes eating, showering, laundry, and actual recreation. The ship features a modest fitness center with 8 treadmills, 6 stationary bikes, 4 ellipticals, and a set of free weights ranging from 5 to 75 pounds. The space measures approximately 800 square feet, so it's never empty and sometimes requires waiting for equipment. Plus, during rough seas, working out becomes an adventure as the ship rolls and pitches. For entertainment, there's a crew lounge that doubles as a training space and emergency muster area. It contains 4 large-screen TVs, gaming consoles, and a library of approximately 500 movies and 200 books. Sailors can watch movies, play video games, or participate in organized tournaments for cards, dominoes, or board games. The thing is that this space serves multiple purposes, so movie time might get interrupted for mandatory training sessions or briefings. Internet access is severely restricted. There's no Wi-Fi, no personal device connectivity, and all computers are monitored and logged. Sailors can't use Bluetooth headphones, smartwatches, or fitness trackers because any signal emission could compromise the ship's stealth capabilities, communicating with families. Staying connected from the middle of the ocean. Communication with families aboard the USS Michael Monsoor is one of the most challenging aspects of deployment. The ship operates with strict emission control protocols, EMCON, which means minimizing all electronic signatures that could be detected by adversaries. This includes radio transmissions, radar, and even communication satellites. During standard operations, sailors can send and receive emails approximately every 48 to 72 hours when the ship uploads and downloads messages via satellite. But there's a catch. Every email is read by communications personnel and the command team. Personal information is fine, but any details about ship location, operations, or capabilities get redacted. Emails are limited to text only, no photos or attachments. Phone calls are even more restricted. The ship has satellite phone capability, but calls are limited to 10 minutes per sailor, once every 2 weeks, and only when operational security permits. During missions in contested waters or when operating under strict MCON, communication can be completely blacked out for 30 to 45 days at a time. Moreover, the crew learns to write emails that don't reveal information. Phrases like "we're doing great," "weather is fine," and "miss you" become the norm. Sailors can't mention ports, countries, or operations. To put it into perspective, a sailor's family might know their loved one deployed in February but won't know where they are until they return home or hit a port call 6 weeks later. Medical and dental care. Healthcare at sea. The USS Michael Monsoor has a medical department staffed by 2 independent duty corpsmen, highly trained medical personnel who operate without direct physician supervision. The sick bay includes an examination room, a small surgical suite, a dental chair, and a 4-bed ward for patients requiring observation or recovery. These corpsmen handle everything from routine sick call for colds and minor injuries to emergency surgeries if necessary. They're trained in advanced trauma life support, emergency medicine, and even basic dentistry. The thing is that serious medical emergencies require medical evacuation by helicopter, which means the ship must break EMCON to call for help and potentially reveal its position. The sickbay stocks approximately 500 different medications, surgical supplies, and emergency equipment, including a defibrillator, ventilator, and trauma supplies. Dental emergencies get handled with temporary solutions until the ship reaches port. In fact, one of the most common medical issues aboard ship is seasickness, especially among newer sailors during rough weather. The corpsmen dispense anti-nausea medication, but eventually everyone acclimates to the ship's motion. Control room and operations center. The brain of the destroyer. The Combat Information Center, CIC, is the brain of the USS Michael Monsoor. This darkened room filled with glowing displays and quiet focused sailors coordinates everything from navigation to weapons employment. Unlike older destroyers with separate spaces for different functions, the Zumwalt-class features an integrated combat system where 12 watchstanders can control the entire ship. The CIC includes the Tactical Action Officer Station, which oversees all combat operations, the Air Warfare Controller, who manages aircraft and missile defense, the Surface Warfare Controller, tracking surface contacts, and the Electronic Warfare Station, monitoring and countering enemy sensors. Each station features 3 large touchscreen displays with intuitive controls that replace the hundreds of switches and buttons found on older warships. The bridge, located above the CIC, is equally advanced. Only 6 people stand watch on the bridge at a time: the officer of the deck, the conning officer, the helmsman, the lee helmsman, and 2 lookouts. Everything is automated to the point where the ship can theoretically be controlled by a single person using a joystick-like controller. But since safety and redundancy are paramount, human oversight remains critical. Advanced weapons systems, the arsenal of the future. The USS Michael Monsoor's weapon systems represent the cutting edge of naval firepower. At the heart of the destroyer's offensive capability are the 2 advanced gun systems, massive 155mm cannons designed to fire precision-guided long-range land attack projectiles at targets up to 63 nautical miles inland. Each gun weighs 60 tons and sits in a stealthy turret that maintains the ship's radar-evading profile. Here's where things get interesting. The original ammunition for these guns costs approximately $800,000 per round. That's more expensive than some cruise missiles. Due to budget constraints, the Navy canceled production of these rounds, leaving the most powerful guns ever mounted on a destroyer without ammunition. The gun mounts remain installed, and the Navy is developing alternative munitions, but currently these impressive weapons are essentially dormant. However, the real firepower comes from the 80 vertical launch system cells embedded in the forward and aft sections of the ship. These VLS cells can launch Tomahawk cruise missiles, SM-2 and SM-6 surface-to-air missiles, ASROC anti-submarine rockets, and potentially the new hypersonic missiles currently in development. Each cell is climate-controlled, monitored 24 hours a day, and can launch missiles in under 60 seconds from receiving the fire order. The fire controlmen who maintain and operate these systems undergo 18 months of training. They learn weapons theory, computer systems, missile guidance, and emergency procedures. Moreover, they conduct simulated missile launches weekly and live-fire exercises quarterly to maintain proficiency. The thing is that one mistake could result in a missile launch, or worse, a catastrophic failure that endangers the ship. For close-in defense, the ship mounts two 30mm close-in gun systems, automated rapid-fire cannons that engage incoming missiles and aircraft. These systems track and engage threats automatically, firing 4,500 rounds per minute. The radar and targeting computer can track multiple threats simultaneously and prioritize based on distance and velocity. The weapons department consists of 38 sailors led by a lieutenant commander. They're divided into 3 divisions: fire control, guided missile, and gun systems. Each division trains constantly because weapons maintenance is both critical and dangerous. One fire controlman described it this way: "We're responsible for millions of dollars of weapons that can level a city. Every day we inspect, test, and verify these systems because there's no room for error." Stealth technology and operations, operating the invisible warship. The USS Michael Monsoor's most remarkable feature isn't its weapons, it's the ability to hide in plain sight. The ship's tumble-home hull design, with sides that slope inward rather than outward, reduces radar reflection by approximately 50 times compared to conventional destroyers. To put it into perspective, this 610-foot warship with a displacement of nearly 16,000 tons produces a radar signature roughly equivalent to a 40-foot fishing boat. Maintaining this stealth capability affects everything the crew does. Sailors can't smoke on weather decks because the heat signature could be detected by infrared sensors. All external lights operate under strict protocols. During stealth operations, not a single photon escapes the ship except from heavily shielded navigation lights. Even painting the ship requires special radar-absorbent materials that must be applied in specific patterns and thicknesses. The composite deckhouse, the superstructure rising above the main deck, consists of composite materials arranged in angular panels that deflect radar waves away from the emitting source. This isn't just paint, it's integrated structural material that makes repairs complicated and expensive. When panels get damaged, replacement costs can exceed $200,000 for a single section, and installation requires specialized contractors with security clearances. But since maintaining stealth requires minimizing electromagnetic emissions, the crew operates under constant MCON restrictions. This means no personal phones, no Wi-Fi, no Bluetooth, and even restrictions on certain types of lighting. The galley uses specialized cooking equipment that doesn't create excessive heat signatures. Ventilation systems are baffled to prevent radar waves from penetrating internal spaces. The operations specialists who monitor the ship's radar signature work in a dedicated space called the Electronic Warfare Module. They use sophisticated sensors to detect what radar energy the ship is reflecting and adjust the ship's orientation and operations to minimize detectability. One operations specialist explained, "We're constantly thinking about what the enemy sees. If we need to conduct a high-emission activity like using certain radars, we plan the timing and duration carefully." Moreover, the ship's integrated power system, IPS, allows the electrical distribution to be reconfigured instantly. The 2 Rolls-Royce gas turbines and 2 auxiliary turbines generate 78 megawatts of power, enough to power 78,000 homes. This massive electrical capacity was designed to eventually power directed energy weapons like lasers and railguns, though these systems haven't been installed yet. Currently, all that power drives the electric propulsion system and charges the ship's advanced electronics. The propulsion system itself is revolutionary. 2 permanent magnet motors drive the propellers, providing quiet operation and precise speed control. Unlike traditional mechanical drivetrains with reduction gears, the IPS is nearly silent. Reducing the acoustic signature that submarines use for detection. Engineers monitor the system from a central control station where they can reroute power, adjust speed, and diagnose problems without leaving their chairs. Living with these stealth requirements means sailors adapt their behavior constantly. Night operations require red light to preserve night vision, but also to minimize light leakage. Sailors secure all hatches and doors carefully because even a small gap can let light escape. The thing is that maintaining stealth becomes second nature. It's not just a tactical requirement, it's woven into the ship's culture. The cost of innovation, America's most expensive destroyer. The USS Michael Monsoor cost $4.4 billion to build, making it the most expensive destroyer in US Navy history. To understand why, you need to look beyond the sticker price to what this ship represents. A complete redesign of destroyer operations from the keel up. The original Zumwalt-class program planned for 32 ships at a projected cost of $1.4 billion each. But as development problems emerged and costs escalated, the program was cut to just 3 ships. This cost-sharing meant that development expenses got spread across only 3 hulls instead of 32, pushing the per-ship cost to astronomical levels. The lead ship, USS Zumwalt, cost $4.4 billion, while the second ship, Michael Monsoor, cost slightly less at $3.6 billion due to lessons learned. Here's the breakdown. Approximately $1.8 billion went to the hull, mechanical and electrical systems. Another $1.2 billion covered weapon systems, though many capabilities remain unimplemented. The advanced computing systems, including the total ship computing environment infrastructure, cost approximately $400 million. The remaining costs cover program management, testing, and government-furnished equipment. But since only 3 ships were built, developing common spare parts and maintenance procedures became challenging. A conventional destroyer benefits from decades of operational experience and a supply chain supporting dozens of ships. The Zumwalt-class has 3 ships with unique components, limited spares, and maintenance procedures that are still being written. When a critical system fails, replacement parts might need to be custom manufactured, taking months instead of days. Moreover, the crew training costs are substantial. Every sailor aboard undergoes specialized schooling for Zumwalt-specific systems. The Navy established dedicated training pipelines, built simulators, and wrote new technical manuals. One senior chief estimated that training the crew for a single deployment costs approximately $8 million when you factor in school seats, simulators, and instructor time. The operational costs are equally impressive. A single deployment consumes approximately $120 million in fuel, food, parts, and operational expenses. The ship burns fuel at a rate of 1,000 gallons per hour at cruising speed, though the exact consumption is classified. Maintenance during and after deployment requires dry dock time that costs approximately $50 million for routine work, with major overhauls exceeding $200 million. Critics argue these costs make the Zumwalt-class too expensive for the capabilities delivered. Supporters counter that the ship represents necessary innovation and that future destroyer classes will benefit from lessons learned. The thing is that both perspectives have merit. The ship demonstrates revolutionary technologies, but the small fleet size limits its operational impact. The Navy's future surface combatant program, which will eventually replace both the Arleigh Burke-class destroyers and the Zumwalt-class, incorporates many Zumwalt technologies but in a more affordable package. The electric drive system, integrated computing architecture, and stealth design principles are all being adapted for future ships. In this sense, the Zumwalt-class serves as a technology demonstrator that's also a fully capable warship. Plus, there's the political dimension. Naval shipbuilding supports approximately 40,000 jobs in Maine, Mississippi, and across the Defense Industrial Base. The Zumwalt program sustained Bath Iron Works in Maine during a transition period between destroyer classes. From this perspective, the ship's cost includes economic benefits and industrial base preservation that extend beyond naval capability. For the sailors aboard, these cost discussions seem abstract. They focus on operating the ship they have, not debating procurement decisions made years earlier. But they're aware they're operating the most expensive destroyer in history, and it creates a certain pressure to justify that investment through operational excellence, command, leadership, and life at sea. The human element of advanced technology. At the top of the USS Michael Monsoor's command structure sits the commanding officer, a Navy captain with approximately 20 years of service and multiple previous sea commands. The CO is responsible for everything that happens aboard the ship: operations, maintenance, personnel, and mission accomplishment. Supporting the CO is the executive officer who handles day-to-day administration and personnel management. Below them, 5 department heads, operations, weapons, engineering, supply, and combat systems, each lead their departments of approximately 20 to 40 sailors. But since the ship operates with just 147 sailors, roughly half the crew of a conventional destroyer, every person's job becomes more critical. There's less redundancy, less margin for error. One fire controlman described it this way: "On a Burke-class destroyer, there might be 8 of us in fire control. Here, there's 4. If one person is sick or injured, the rest of us pick up the slack." This lean manning creates a unique culture. Officers and enlisted work more closely together than on traditional ships. The thing is that everyone knows everyone, which creates camaraderie, but also means interpersonal conflicts have nowhere to hide. Leadership development aboard the ship emphasizes tactical proficiency and technical expertise. Junior officers typically spend 18 to 24 months aboard, qualifying as Officer of the Deck, Tactical Action Officer, and various warfare specialty qualifications. One junior officer reflected, "The responsibility hits you immediately. You're a division officer for 20 sailors standing watch in combat and making tactical recommendations to the CO within your first few months." Enlisted advancement opportunities are strong aboard the Zumwalt-class because the crew size limits competition for leadership positions. Petty officers advance more quickly, take on more responsibility earlier, and have direct access to senior leadership port calls. Provide crucial mental health breaks. After 30 to 45 days at sea, pulling into a foreign port for 4 to 5 days allows sailors to experience normal life temporarily. They can call family without time limits, walk on solid ground, eat different food, and simply exist away from the ship. Career progression after serving aboard the Zumwalt-class opens unique opportunities. The advanced systems experience makes sailors valuable across the fleet. Officers seek follow-on tours and acquisition or training commands. Enlisted sailors become instructors, technical experts, or transition to civilian careers leveraging their specialized skills. Post-service, many veterans find defense contractors eager to hire them for their understanding of how systems actually operate. The reality behind the technology. The USS Michael Monsoor represents the intersection of cutting-edge technology and timeless human service. For all its $4.4 billion price tag, sophisticated weapons, and revolutionary stealth capabilities, the ship ultimately depends on 147 sailors who wake up every day in tight quarters, stand watch for hours, eat meals together, and work through challenges that range from minor inconveniences to life-threatening emergencies. These sailors operate the most advanced destroyer ever built while dealing with the same basic challenges humans have faced at sea for centuries: homesickness, fatigue, interpersonal conflict, and the psychological weight of extended isolation. The technology makes their missions more effective, but it doesn't make deployment easier. If anything, the complexity adds pressure. What makes the Zumwalt-class remarkable isn't just the radar cross-section or the electric drive or the advanced weapon systems. It's that the Navy successfully integrated these technologies into a platform that 147 people can operate effectively for months at a time. The crew isn't just operating a ship. They're proving that revolutionary technology can work in the harsh reality of naval operations. Every sailor who serves aboard the USS Michael Monsoor earns the right to say they operated the most expensive warship in history. But more importantly, they become part of a small community that understands what it means to live at the intersection of impossible technology and human limitation. They adapt, overcome, and maintain their professionalism while floating in contested waters far from home. And perhaps the most impressive statistic of all, despite all the advanced automation, despite the reduced crew size, despite the revolutionary systems, the success of this $4.4 billion destroyer still comes down to the same thing that's determined naval success for centuries: the quality, dedication, and resilience of the sailors who bring her to life every single day.